The year is 452 AD. The Roman Empire is collapsing, and an army of Huns is tearing through northern Italy, forcing locals to flee. With nowhere else to go, they head off the coast into a shallow lagoon and take refuge on a scattered collection of isolated islands. There are no roads here, no stone to build with, and not a single drop of fresh water. The ground itself is composed of soft, marshy clay, a thick mud that can barely support the weight of a human, let alone a building. Building even a modest house on this surface is a logistical nightmare. Constructing an entire civilization here seems physically impossible. But they stayed. To survive, these refugees reverse-engineered the very concept of a foundation, learning how to anchor a permanent city directly into the sinking mud. Their solution began across the sea. They cleared forests in nearby Croatia, hauled massive logs to the lagoon, and began constructing an artificial bedrock. They hammer heavy wooden piles through 5 meters of soft mud until they strike a stable layer of clay. By packing thousands of logs together, the mud becomes severely compressed. This pressure physically forces the trapped water out, turning the clay into a rigid mass. The real success is chemical. Because the wood is completely submerged in mud and water, it remains sealed away from the air. Without oxygen, the bacteria that normally cause wood to rot cannot survive. The visible city is an architectural illusion. The entire structure sits on top of a perfectly preserved 1,500-year-old underground forest. Even with a reinforced base, the ground beneath Venice still settles and shifts. To keep heavy masonry from cracking as the foundations move, the buildings themselves had to change. Engineers managed the weight by capping building heights at 3 stories and replacing heavy stone with lighter brickwork. Instead of rigid cement, they used a flexible lime mortar. This allows walls to flex along with the sinking mud. To secure heavier facades, they run thick iron rods through the brickwork, pinning outer walls into internal wooden joists to keep the structure locked together. Every building in Venice acts as a dynamic, flexible skeleton, specifically engineered to move in harmony with its hostile environment. As isolated island settlements expanded into one another, the growing city required a unified transit system. In the early years, transit meant either taking a small boat or wading a horse through the shallow mud. As the population increased, they built massive connecting structures like the Rialto Bridge. The scale of this single crossing is immense. Engineers drove 12,000 timber piles into the canal banks to create a base strong enough to hold 10,000 tons of solid stone. This created a dual transit system. Heavy boat traffic flows down the canals, while foot traffic moves along elevated walkways and bridges. The systems operate independently. Goods move through this network without being slowed by pedestrians or horses. This efficiency turned Venice into the fastest, wealthiest trade machine in Europe. Rapid growth brought a deadly biological paradox. Venice housed 170,000 people, surrounded by saltwater, yet they lacked a single source of fresh drinking water. They solved this by turning their public squares into hidden water treatment plants. They excavated the squares, lined them with waterproof clay, and filled the basins with sand. Rainwater funneled from the rooftops and filtered through these sand layers to collect in a central well. The stone wellheads sitting in the center of the piazza serve as the primary access points for this massive subterranean sister system. Managing waste was the next priority. Engineers constructed a network of underground brick tunnels connecting every building directly to the local canals. To clean these tunnels, they harnessed the natural rise and fall of the lagoon's tide. Twice a day, the incoming tide floods the tunnels and then recedes, sucking solid waste out of the city and into the sea. Venice functions like a living organism, complete with hidden organs designed to filter its water and flush out its waste. Many of the original wonders of the ancient world were built on solid rock, yet they eventually collapsed or faded into dust. Venice was built on sinking mud and remains standing. This 1,000-year-old floating megastructure proves that humanity's most enduring engineering marvels are often born not from vanity, but from absolute desperation.